tech companies don't care if you can code anymore. In a leaked audio by AWS executive Matt Garman, he said, if you go forward 24 months from now or some amount of time, it's possible that most developers are not coding. Peter Schwartz, chief features officer at Salesforce, said that coding is no longer the most important skill in the AI era. And even Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, has started to vibe code. See, the problem is software engineering has evolved to the point where everything is abstracted. No more networking engineers, mainframe engineers, and now no more coders? Well, that's what I wanted to investigate more about. Why are these companies no longer emphasizing coding? And what are they looking for in employees now? The answer might shock you. The word tech existed long before coding became mainstream. Back then, working in tech meant building actual physical machines. Engineers spent their time solving math problems, wiring circuits, or assembling hardware. Then came software. For decades, coding became the core skill of modern tech jobs. But now, we're evolving again. In the AI era, coding is no longer the bottleneck. Problem solving is. It's not about how many lines of code that you can write. It's about how you can define problems, design solutions, or orchestrate systems at scale. In fact, Peter Schwartz, a Salesforce exec, thinks that coding is no longer the most important skill for a developer. The most important skill is empathy, working with other people. And he mentioned that parents asked him, what should their kids study? Should they be coders? And he said, learn how to work well with others. That's the most important skill. He said that we've seen a massive increase in productivity of our coders because they have the tools to be able to code much faster and, frankly, more creatively. And as AI gets better at writing code, some people have speculated that it'll increasingly take on some technical coding tasks and circumvent the need for engineers. These tech executives don't care if you can code. That's the most basic standard nowadays. What they really care about is if you can understand technical problems at a high level, communicate with AI tooling, and ship things quickly and efficiently. Very much a DevOps and principal lead all wrapped up in one. If you were around back in the day, we used to have networking engineers, engineers that maintained servers, but all of those were abstracted away by the cloud. And many of those engineers became the singular DevOps/dev that we know today. We're becoming even more singular now and merging multiple jobs into one with the help of AI. And part of that change means not having to code for 8 hours a day. But all that being said, I think it's very easy to get caught up in what important people say about tech trends. No one can actually predict what's going to happen at the end of the day. When I started coding in college, I learned how to use binary, assembly, a GPU and CPU, the operating system at a very low level. We're talking modifications in the kernel, but I never needed to use any of those things on the job in the way that I learned them in school because of all the abstractions. But it gave me a much better understanding of how to use the code and make a system faster and more efficient. So personally, I still think learning to code is really, really important because then you can understand how AI generates specific things or what it's looking for when it installs a bunch of dependencies for you. Just assuming everything works in a magic black box isn't great for humanity. Another reason executives are shying away from code is impact. You've probably heard the term impact before. Impact is a measurable success metric that shows you've positively affected the company in a really big way, whether that's bringing in more money, completing a large project that affects many customers, or doing something high visibility for the leadership, aka do something that makes a really big difference. Before, engineers were mostly tested on impact and technical ability. So even if you were working on some things that were really small and maybe not super critical or important for the business, you were still really valued as an engineer. Your skills used to really matter if they were good, even for the smallest changes. Now, imagine being a car salesperson or a realtor. Your success metric is, well, success. It doesn't matter how you get there, but your promotion or accolades are heavily dependent on how much money you bring to the company or how much you revolutionize a new process. It kind of feels like you're commission-based, even though it's not really commission-based. Your skills are still technical because you need to solve hard problems, but this time you need to be smart about what projects you take on. Now, there are two sides to this. This can get dangerous if everyone everyone is chasing high-impact projects. There are really important things to attend to, like technical debt, upgrading a system, securing your apps in a better way, or even just fixing bugs. But if those are not regarded as important, then no one will work on them. And then the quality of software will just slowly spiral. That's why Sundar Pichai made a statement about AI not replacing developers, but just enhancing their skills. He said that, "I've just been messing around, either with Cursor or I vibe coded with Replit, trying to build a custom web page with all the sources of information I wanted in one place." He emphasized that AI is not replacing human engineers, but rather augmenting their capabilities, allowing them to focus on problem solving and creativity. He framed AI as an accelerator for human capability. All this being said, but AI is here to stay, whether we like it or not. So you really want to start understanding what tools to use in order to stay out on top, because everyone is experimenting with these tools, and so it's important that you can get ahead of that. You can't just use ChatGPT and call it a day. These CEOs want you to pick LLMs and agents that actually help streamline the work that you do. I know it's easier said than done, but I have a few examples of tools that should be on your radar, including Claude. If you've been using LLMs to help you code, you probably already know that ChatGPT is great for brainstorming ideas, but when it comes to actually writing production-level code, it can fall short. That's where I noticed that Claude is different. Claude is actually becoming the go-to coding assistant for engineers. First, it leads the pack on serious coding benchmarks. On SweBench, which tests real-world software engineering tasks from GitHub repos, Claude hits a 72.5% solve rate, compared to its competitors that still struggle on complex PRs. But it's not just about benchmarks. It's about real coding workflows. Claude can actually understand your entire code base, not just the single file that you paste in. Here's a real code base, cal.com, an open source Calendly alternative for booking meetings. Let's ask both Claude and ChatGPT to update how time zones are handled. So I've pasted the prompt below. So Claude understood everything almost immediately. It's already giving me instructions on which files to change and which files to add. Then it started actually writing code, and it's giving me detailed instructions on where these code chunks are going to go. And then lastly, it's giving me a step-by-step implementation guide so I know exactly where to put the code. It's very clear. Now let's try with ChatGPT. So it's giving me some code chunks, but it's not super clear where these are supposed to go, and it makes copy and pasting really difficult as well. In fact, I actually found some issues in the code, and there were also some hallucinations because this code won't compile. Compared to Claude, you can see that it has a very clear implementation plan, the code changes, and an implementation guide. It tracks architectural patterns, coordinates changes across multiple files, and even writes code that matches your team's style and structure. Claude also has agentic capabilities, so it can generate CLI commands, run your tests, and iterate on fixes, all while keeping you in the loop. So now I've actually installed Claude Code using the terminal, and I'm going to actually have Claude make those changes in my local files for the cal.com repository. So I give it the same prompt, and now it's updating a bunch of files, and it's telling me exactly what it's read and what it's doing. And now it's editing all of these files, and it's asking me for permissions to actually update these files. And you can see what's been deleted and what's been removed. So it went ahead and made all of these changes for me, which is amazing. It's an insanely high quality agentic AI process. So at the end of the day, it's not just writing the code, it's actually helping you run it and debug it too. So if you're just chatting or brainstorming, ChatGPT is still great. But if you're actually building software, Claude is quickly becoming the secret weapon for developers. It's like the difference between having a conversation versus a collaborator. That being said, let me show you some other examples of what tech executives are looking for. Just like with people, one single LLM can't do everything. You need specific tools like a coding assistant agent to help you with your work, an agent to help you with decks, and even just a brainstorming LLM. We've already covered Claude, which I've added a link in the description below, but there are a few others that are notable too. I recently made a video about Augment Code and their capabilities with working on large repos and making updates or adding tests. It's truly remarkable. I even tested it against Cursor, and honestly, it wasn't even a competition. Or even with GenSpark AI. I used them for creating slide decks. It was a one-of-a-kind tool when it came to creating a presentation within minutes. There are some really cool tools out there that can make your process much faster. And the more you fight against it, the more you'll fall behind. And I think that's the point that that many of these tech executives are trying to make. Especially in the world of tech, technology moves fast, so you have to be willing to adapt accordingly. At the end of the day, coding is still a valuable asset to be had, but it's no longer going to keep you afloat as a software engineer if it's the only asset that you have. In my opinion, you'll always need the general problem-solving skills in order to fix big issues, but those granular technical skills are changing all the time. And now that change just happens to affect the act of coding altogether. So pay attention to what companies are looking for now, because it just might mean the difference between you getting a job and not.